Here we go. Foundational truths. Just some making sure we're on the same page here with some foundational truths before we dive in. First, foundational truth. There is a spiritual world. There's a spiritual world. I want to invite you to turn with me to 2 Kings chapter 6. Now, we're going to turn to some different passages, not really a ton of passages, but there are some places where I want to make sure to draw your attention to certain scriptures. I've tried to include as many scriptures as possible in the guide so that we don't have to spend too much time turning here and there. But I want you to see this story. Elisha was a prophet of God. That's where we come in 2 Kings chapter 6. And in this text, he's described as the man of God. And I want you to see what's happening here. Look at 2 Kings chapter 6, verse 8. Follow along. Elisha's the man of God here, the prophet. Now, the king of Aram was at war with Israel. After conferring with his officers, he said, I will set up my camp in such and such a place. The man of God sent word to the king of Israel. The man of God, remember, is Elisha. Sent word to the king of Israel. Beware of passing that place because the Arameans are going down there. So the king of Israel checked on the place indicated by the man of God, and time and again Elisha warned the king so that he was on guard in such places. So you see what's happening here. The king of Aram wants to take out the king of Israel and all his army. But God tells Elisha where the king of Aram is going to be, and so Elisha says, hey, king of Israel, just so you know, the king of Aram's hiding out over here. Obviously, this did not make the king of Aram very happy. And so, verse 11 says, this enraged the king of Aram. He summoned his officers and demanded of them, will you not tell me which of us is on the side of the king of Israel? In other words, who's the rat here? None of us, my lord the king, said one of his officers, but Elisha, the prophet who's in Israel, tells the king of Israel the very words you speak in your bedroom. He knows everything about you, man. He knows all your plans. And so the king of Aram decides, we need to take out Elisha. And so that's what happens. Verse 13, go find out where he is, the king ordered, so I can send men and capture him. Like Elisha wouldn't know. That's the whole point. The report came back. He is in Dothan. Then he sent horses and chariots and a strong force there. They went by night and surrounded the city. So middle of the night, they get surrounding the city. They're surrounding the whole army, ready to take down Elisha. And then what happens? Verse 15, when the servant of the man of God, Elisha's servant, got up and went out early the next morning, an army with horses and chariots had surrounded the city. Oh, my Lord, what shall we do? The servant asked. He's panicking. The whole army's come and about to take them down. So listen to what Elisha says to him. Don't be afraid, the prophet answered. Those who are with us are more than those who are with them. Now that's an interesting response. Put yourself in the servant's shoes at this point. Oh, okay. Those who are with us, too, are more than those who are with them, like army around the city. Now, the old man's good at prophecy, but math is not his subject. So what happens? Elisha prayed, oh Lord, open his eyes so that he may see. And the Lord opened the servant's eyes, and he looked and saw the hills full of horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. And all of a sudden, the servant was able to see that an entire army of the Lord was surrounding this army. And that indeed there were more with them than there were, more with us than there were with them. And so verse 18 says, as the enemy came down toward him, Elisha prayed to the Lord, strike these people with blindness. So he struck them with blindness, as Elisha had asked. Elisha told them, this is not the road and this is not the city. Follow me, and I will lead you to the man you are looking for. And he led them to Samaria. After they entered the city, Elisha said, Lord, open the eyes of these men so they can see. Then the Lord opened their eyes, and they looked, and there they were inside Samaria. When the king of Israel saw them, he asked Elisha, shall I kill them, my father? Shall I kill them? Do you see what just happened? Elisha led them directly to the king of Israel. Now, the point of bringing that passage, I want to put that picture before you because I want us to realize how alike we are to the servant of Elisha. We see so little. That's the point. There is a spiritual world. And brothers and sisters, there are a lot of things that are going on that we do not see. An invisible world that is just as real as the visible world, yet far more powerful. Just think of this. That there are vast numbers of angels, good and bad, all around us. Just kind of let that soak in. Angels, holy angels, that if we were to see them, we would be floored by their beauty. And evil angels, demons, that if we were to see them, we would shudder back in total horror. God, open our eyes to see spiritual world. Now, at this point, objections begin to pop up. Spiritual explanations are primitive. Don't you know science, technology, medicine have basically rendered belief in the spiritual world as erroneous? You say you believe in demons and angels, that's like saying you believe in dragons, elves, and the tooth fairy. Really? Demons and angels? In a Western worldview, in our context in particular, if you cannot see it, feel it, touch it, smell it, then it is not there. We're blind to a spiritual world. And how can you explain that God controls thunder and lightning when we know meteorologists can predict that a week out? How can you say that there's a personal force who tempts, a person who tempts people to sin, when we know that sin is just a product of our DNA and the social environment in which we live, and it can be predicted what we're going to do? How can you really believe in these kinds of things? At most, the spiritual world, angels and demons are looked at as religious fancy. This is one of the great parts of the Screwtape Letters, C.S. Lewis, classic book. When an elder demon is speaking to a younger demon and giving advice on how to deceive people. And listen to what he says. Wormwood, this is the elder demon speaking to the younger demon, I do not think you will have much difficulty in keeping the patient in the dark. The fact that devils are predominantly comic figures in the modern imagination will help you. If any faint suspicion of your existence begins to arise in his mind, just suggest to him a picture of something in red tights. And persuade him that since he can't believe in that, he therefore cannot believe in you. Modern culture has talked us out of not only thinking about demons and angels, but even talking about them without thinking. Is this just a little out there? Are we just imagining this? Spiritual explanations are primitive. Spiritual realities are not pervasive. In other words, even if we acknowledge that there is a spiritual world, oftentimes we begin to think, well, that just deals with seances and Ouija boards and occult practices and this or that. Or maybe, as a Christian, we think, well, now that happens in many third world contexts, overseas, over there, and we just can't grip the idea that there are spiritual forces all around us in middle class America. And this is an extremely dangerous way to think. To think that they are not pervasive. To ignore the fact that the conflict waging in the spiritual realm has huge effect on what we watch on TV and how we respond to what we see in a movie, and how husbands you speak to your wife, and how parents you speak to your children, and how we carry our lives and spend our money. That has everything to do with the spiritual world. Even if we acknowledge there's a spiritual world, in our context, we so disconnect it from the natural world that we think, well, they just don't have anything to do with each other, and we don't see how the spiritual world infiltrates our politics and our business and our neighborhoods and our homes and everything we do.